extreme.
I have
it's extreme.
A little difficulty. I want you to help me with that. Okay. So we talk about founders with a belief that, with apostrophe at the end, in the belief, if I not the belief, the fact that the struggle for independence started way long before Kwame Nkrumah led it at the point that he led it. Okay. However, when we speak about Founders Day, the images you see are images of the Big Six. And that is where I begin to ask myself whether it is not to supplant something. Because that's what I see. If you go to the redecorated mausoleum today, you would see, I haven't been there, so I don't know if, for example, Park Grant is there. No, I'm saying I've not been there, so I don't know. What I know is that it's still the same Big Six, like the adding of the other 5.
They've even removed that after public protest.
Okay. So initially that was it. If you see the images, it's about the 6 persons. Then interestingly, we are told that, it is in recognition of the fact that the thing started perhaps even a century before Nkrumah came to lead it and all that. Yet, anytime that Founders Day is done, what we see from the optics, from the optical point of view, is images of some 6 persons depicting these 6 as the founders. So I ask myself, and I mean, with the greatest respect to everybody, and I don't intend to offend anybody. I, for example, ask myself, why will I find William Oforiatta and not find Park Grant? What is it about the contribution of some of those people that surpass some of those people that I have read about in our history? That if indeed this thing was meant to correct something, some historical mistakes that have been made, that it is rather being used to tell, is being used in a subtle manner to tell a particular story.
Randy, I can...
Just a little more. I mean, not just Park Grant. Nick Obnaboni, where is he? When we are celebrating 4th of August, where is Nick Obnaboni? Where is Sergeant Ajete? Where is Corporal Atipo? You know, where are all those people? Where do you find Yas Antwa in that Big Six and so on? It's just...
No, right. So I think that, I mean...
So why the 6?
Yeah,
why
so I think that these concerns are valid in terms of really expanding the scope of people. But even that, I mean, the list probably would be endless because, like I indicated earlier, there are people who are on stand queues.
So my question really is, why the 6?
No, but
why those 6 personalities?
I feel why? So those 6 personalities, I mean, since I was a child, you actually even see these 6 personalities on our legal tender, and it's been highlighted over a period.
Yeah, but growing up, I begin to ask myself,
why?
What is it that each of them, I know what Nkrumah did, I know what some of them did. I mean, what is it that, for instance, if we say that if we include all these people, we might get into a realm of absurdity. Exactly. I agree. Yeah. I agree. But if we don't want to get to the realm of absurdity, and we think that there are particular people who play towering roles, for which reason, if we want to even put 6 people, we should have them. Why these 6?
No, but that's what I'm saying. So that conversation, again, I think that is also significant that we appreciate that there's a lot of healing that needs to be done in this country. Sometimes I feel that people are like that and take extreme positions because of things that happen and they were even victims of, right? So it goes beyond even the politics of it and now becomes social, it becomes things that has family ties, things that have even religious, if you want to put it that way, and personal circumstances that pertained at the time. So for example, even if you ask a question about these Big Six, I think it became very significant because these Big Six were people who were actually apprehended and put in prison by the colonial masters.
Some had gone visiting some people.
Exactly. Right, and that's all the accounts of someone, for example, Akwaje, for example, who had some interaction with Kwame Nkrumah, decided that, listen, let's bring in this young man who he had actually identified to come in and help the UGCC as a general secretary, and even wrote a letter and all of those things. And the UGCC at the time, with all some of these people, facilitate Nkrumah's return to Ghana to start the struggle. So and that's what I'm saying, that it's very difficult to convince someone who has held a certain position for a very long time, especially when it dovetails into a conversation around ideology, around this whole conversation around independence now, or independence in the shortest possible time, and all the things that pertain there. So it's almost as if that we are mixing a whole bunch of things, and whether you like it or not, like I've always used this example here. I mean, I grew up in a home that, I wasn't around when Nkrumah was president, right? I grew up in a home where my dad and his brothers didn't have anything positive to say about Kwame Nkrumah because of personal experiences, right? And it would shape. So apart from the things
that would be about in analyzing or evaluating maybe Nkrumah's leadership, his presidency.
Yes.
They can have that view.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the issue of founders and those things, for me, it's not about what you think about a person. It's about facts.
Yeah, but
historical records.
Yeah, but that's what I'm
whether
saying.
you like the person or not,
Randy,
nobody can take away the fact that Jerry John Rawlings was president in the Fourth Republic from period A to period B. Whether you like him or you loathe him, that fact.
It's there. Right. I mean, Randy, that's what I'm saying, that it's all about also sometimes respecting people's views and opinions on some of these things. And so for one person, they feel that, listen, these persons or everybody that played some role, either known or unknown, should have some significance.
I'm telling you that's why I told you
now,
that
there's also
I'm prepared. I'm
also
prepared to even accept.
Yes.
You see, because I look around Africa. I don't even want to go beyond that. I look around Africa. The people who are celebrated as the founders of some of those African countries, they didn't start the independence struggle in their respective countries. They didn't. So whether you are going to Kenya or you are going to Tanzania or you are going anywhere, those who are celebrated and are everybody agrees that they are the founders, they didn't start the independence struggle.
But you see, Randy.
So if you want to talk about the fact that the struggle started from somewhere, people know that.
Randy,
you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. People know that. So if we even come to even policies in this country, and I decide to, let me even use two policies in Ghana. Health insurance, free senior secondary school. In one form or the other, it was started by some other people. But there's a certain recognition that, look, somebody maybe did it differently or did this and did that. And those people would want to be seen as those who spearheaded it. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Yes.
Saying,
So
as an O-level
opportunity to do what perhaps is right, just to go by what you're saying, then what we do is to recreate history with the images of some 6 particular
But that is that.
and for my children to be able to read about those 6 people and the fact that they were pivotal in the fight for independence, and not have the opportunity of reading about all those stalwarts. Why would any government want to subject me to that?
I share that sentiment in terms of basically widening the scope and having this conversation in a proper way, devoid of the sentiment. Otherwise, you see, the moment you go into this whole issues to do with sentiment, for example, there are people who have never forgiven Kwame Nkrumah from being the liberator to, at a point, actually becoming what they will call a tyrant, or somebody who decided to impose himself on this country as a lifetime president. And they will never forgive him for that. You know what I'm saying? But like you're saying, and I take your position that it does not take away from him in terms of his conviction, the passion, and dedication that he showed for us to become independent. Is it okay for people to have a certain level of disquiet and be disgruntled by the happenings of a period? Yes.
Undoubtedly.
And then the reverse is also true, whereby some elements also feel that he did all of those things because of certain incidents or things that happened at a point, and they use that to justify those actions. But the truth of the matter is that if you are affected, if you are somebody who's been impacted negatively, and we can even extend this conversation, you mentioned Rolex, right? We can even extend this conversation to people who, for one reason or the other, were victims of a so-called revolution, who up to today will not be able to forgive people who perpetrated these things. You understand what I'm saying? So I believe strongly that as a country, we have to get to the point where we would, take a cue from President Kufuor, for example, and go back to this whole conversation around reconciliation and all that. Because in one breath, you say somebody wants to rewrite the history. In another breath, we want to also undermine or underestimate the contributions of other persons. You cannot do that concurrently. We need to find almost a middle ground and say that as a people, there are positives, there are things that we can take from these persons who dedicated their life to the development of this country. However, in terms of the excesses, in terms of the negativity that actually ensued in doing that, let's eschew these things and move on as a people of
I'm not sure anybody will have a problem if we decided that, look, there are a lot of people who participated in the struggle. We need to have a Founders Day celebrated.
Yes.
I'm not sure people have a problem, but when you decide to use some particular photographs, then that becomes, I mean, everybody can tell the subtle rewriting of the history. Why do we always think that we are smarter than everybody else?
Randy, you see, I don't even want to dispute you on that score. But the point is that you can say it for both sides of this conversation. You understand? And that's why I'm saying that if you're not careful, you will just take one entrenched view. There were the times in this country where anybody that spoke about anything that had to do with the so-called UP tradition and everything, right? These are people who are even termed to be terrorists and were throwing bombs and all of those things. Then you have another school of thought that said these are people who try to oppress the people of this country, came out with an obnoxious law, which was a PDA and everything. So if you sit in a room, like we used to do debate in school, if you took me speaking for this side and took another person speaking for that side, we have arguments against.
I'll listen to the facts.
Against each other all day.
And I'll express an opinion.
Exactly.
And largely, you might find that there's some level of stereotyping and all that. But I mean, I'm just saying that, look, even in looking for you see, there's this photograph. Anytime I see, from when we started this Founders Day, anytime I see that photograph, then the issue of the Big Six also comes to mind. And the declaration, the polo.
Yeah.
So those people on that days, you could easily have played PR around it and made those people, for example, founders of Ghana. Because on the day that the declaration was being made, those were the people who flanked the man. It's that kind of thing. This one.
Yeah.
This one. It's that kind of, you can use this, whether it's for a currency or something, commemorative, a picture. Yeah. But it is the narrative that you put around it, which creates the problem. If everybody knows that, this was the people who flanked Nkrumah, their names are this, Welbeck, this, that, fine. But immediately you put a certain narration around it, which is not what it is, but is intended to have a certain effect. That's where the problem comes in. And then people would see that, you're just seeking solace in some historical fact in order to tell a certain story that you once said. That's most insincere. Anyway.